A fantastic Thursday, Lions Nation. My mind is already on Sunday. The expectation is high, but you can be sure our Lion is focused and ready to roar louder than ever. I kindly ask you to hit that like button. It really helps our work. And I want to see in the comments, if you've been a fan for more than 50 years, share your experience and passion for the Lions with us. Let's go together because this team belongs to all of us. What a week for the Detroit Lions. After silencing critics with a statement victory over the Baltimore Ravens, the energy in Detroit feels different. The type of different that makes you think something big is brewing. For years, the Lions have been seen as a team full of promise that couldn't quite live up to the moment, but that narrative is shifting fast. When Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes took over, they promised to build an identity rooted in toughness, consistency, and belief. Against Baltimore, the Lions didn't just win. They dictated the entire rhythm of the game. On the road, in primetime, against a franchise known for 2 decades of competitiveness, Detroit looked like the aggressor from start to finish. That wasn't just a victory, it was a declaration. This team is no longer just chasing respect, they're earning it. And now, all eyes shift to Cleveland. The Browns might only be 1-2, but don't be fooled into thinking this will be an easy matchup. Their defense is ferocious, led by a generational talent in Myles Garrett, and they have a coordinator Lions fans know well, Jim Schwartz, once the head coach in Detroit. He brings his aggressive wide 9 defensive scheme, the same philosophy that once had Ndamukong Suh, Nick Fairley, and Ezekiel Ansah terrorizing quarterbacks. This is a defense that thrives on making opponents one-dimensional, suffocating the run, and forcing quarterbacks into dangerous situations. And while Cleveland's offense remains shaky, their defense alone can keep them in games, just as it did in a gritty 13-10 win over Green Bay last week. The Lions, though, are prepared. Jared Goff looked calm and commanding against Baltimore, delivering big-time throws under pressure. The offensive line, anchored by Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, knows it will be tested by Garrett on nearly every snap. Expect tight ends like Sam Laporta and Brock Wright to stay in for extra blocking help, and don't be surprised if running backs David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are used as added protection. The strategy is simple. Survive Cleveland's pass rush, then punish their secondary, especially if Denzel Ward's shoulder injury keeps him sidelined. Without Ward, the Browns would be forced to rely on less experienced corners to contain Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, a mismatch Detroit can exploit. Still, Campbell isn't going to abandon the run. He'll look to wear Cleveland down with Montgomery's punishing inside carries, setting the stage for Gibbs, or even a trick play with Jameson Williams or Khalif
Raymond on the edge. The formula worked against Baltimore, steady body blows in the first half, followed by explosive gains when the defense finally cracked. Campbell knows this Browns front is stout, but he believes in the physicality of his offensive line. Defensively, Detroit has every reason to be confident. Joe Flacco may have experience, but at this stage in his career, he's a sitting target. He's already been sacked 6 times this season and thrown 4 interceptions. If the Lions' front 7 can stifle rookie running back Quentin Judkins, who averages 5.5 yards per carry, they'll force Flacco into obvious passing downs. That's when Aiden Hutchinson, Alquadin Muhammad, and rookie Tyreek Williams can pin their ears back and go hunting. Add in the possibility of creative blitzes from Brian Branch or Amick Robertson, and this could be the kind of game where Detroit's secondary finally cashes in on turnovers. Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch will be watching for those deep shots Flacco still tries to take, and with Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and Isaiah Bond lining up outside, they'll be tested. But pressure makes those throws rushed and dangerous, and Joseph already looks primed to grab another interception. And then there's Amon-Ra St. Brown. Every week he seems to take his game to another level. He isn't just making catches, he's making statement plays, contested grabs, tough yards after contact, and even stepping up as a blocker to set the tone. He represents exactly what this team has become: tough, unselfish, relentless. Some are already saying he belongs in the conversation as one of the NFL's top 3 receivers, and it's hard to argue. If he gets rolling against this Cleveland defense, it could turn a grinded-out battle into another Detroit showcase. This game isn't just about moving to 3-1. It's about continuing to prove that the Lions are no longer the team defined by what-ifs and close calls. They're becoming the team that wins tough games, controls the pace, and makes opponents adjust to them. Ford Field will be loud, the energy will be electric, and if the Lions start fast, it could turn into a long day for the Browns. So the stage is set. Detroit is favored, but they know every win in the NFL must be earned. If they take care of the little things, special teams discipline, limiting penalties, protecting the football. This could be another opportunity to show the league that the Lions aren't just contenders, they're setting the standard. But what do you think, Lions fans? Is this the kind of matchup where Detroit shows once again that they're on a different level? Or do you see Cleveland's defense making this one a nail-biter? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your predictions and how confident you feel heading into Sunday. The fascinating part of this matchup is that it's a perfect test of Detroit's balance. Against Baltimore, the Lions proved they could out-physical a team known for toughness, winning at the line of scrimmage on both sides. Against Cleveland, they'll need to combine that same grit with patience and smart adjustments. Myles Garrett is capable of wrecking a game plan by himself, and Schwartz's wide nine scheme is designed to create chaos. That means Jared Goff has to remain poised, sticking to quick reads and trusting the rhythm throws that have defined his resurgence in Detroit. If he stays clean and avoids turnovers, the Lions' offensive firepower can shine. One area that can tilt the game in Detroit's favor is versatility. Expect Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson to lean on multiple formations, 12 personnel with Laporta and Wright for added protection, spread looks to test Cleveland's secondary depth, and motion plays designed to confuse linebackers. Jameson Williams could be unleashed as a vertical threat, especially if Ward is sidelined, forcing Cleveland's safeties to choose between doubling him deep or focusing on Amonrae's intermediate routes. That decision-making stress could be the crack that opens big plays. And if the Browns overcommit to stopping the pass, Montgomery has the power to punish them inside. Defensively, Detroit is walking into a situation tailor-made for their identity. Cleveland's offense has been sluggish, and while Flacco still has the arm strength to launch deep passes, he lacks the mobility to extend plays. That's where Hutchinson and company can feast. Aiden Hutchinson lining up against Cornelius Lucas at left tackle is a matchup to watch. If Hutch consistently collapses the pocket, Flacco will be forced into rush throws that Kirby Joseph and rookie corner Terrion Arnold can capitalize on. This is the type of game where Detroit's defensive line rotation, Hutchinson, Tyreek Williams, Alquadin Muhammad, can take over. The goal is simple: stop Judkins early, force third and longs, and make Flacco play catch-up. And let's not overlook special teams. Against Baltimore, long fields became a storyline after costly penalties, and while the Lions showed they could march 95 yards for touchdowns, no team wants to live in that situation week after week. Campbell has made it clear: discipline matters, and this week is an opportunity for Detroit's special teams to reset the tone. Clean coverage, strong returns, and no mistakes. Those little details can decide a close game against a defensive juggernaut like Cleveland. What really makes this game compelling, though, is the psychological factor. Cleveland is coming off a gritty win, snapping the Packers' undefeated run with a blocked field goal. They'll walk into Ford Field with confidence, determined to show that their defense can carry them to victories even if their offense sputters. But Detroit isn't Green Bay. The Lions don't crumble under defensive pressure, they thrive on it. That was clear against Baltimore, when every punch the Ravens threw was answered with a stronger counter. This team has learned how to play complete, four-quarter football, and at home, with the roar of Ford Field behind them, the atmosphere can suffocate opponents who aren't prepared for it. There's also the looming question of Cleveland's quarterback situation. How long will the Browns stick with Joe Flacco if the offense continues to sputter? Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders sit behind him, waiting for a chance. If Detroit jumps out to a 2-score lead, could Cleveland make a switch mid-game, hoping to spark something? It's a scenario the Lions must prepare for. Different quarterbacks mean different tendencies, and Aaron Glenn's defense will need to adjust quickly if that change comes. But the truth is, no matter who lines up under center, the Browns don't have the firepower to match Detroit if the Lions play to their standard. The key to victory comes down to controlling tempo. If Detroit establishes the run early, forces Cleveland's defense to respect multiple threats, and avoids long third downs, the offense will wear them down. If the defense stuffs Judkins and makes Flacco throw 35-plus times, turnovers are inevitable. That's the blueprint, and it's one the Lions have shown they can execute. This game feels like another chance for Detroit to remind the league that last year wasn't a fluke. They're not just beating teams, they're dictating the style of play. If they impose their will on Cleveland, if they force Schwartz and Garrett into desperate adjustments, this won't be a grinded-out nail-biter. It'll be another statement. So, Lions fans, here's the question. Do you see this game turning into another dominant showcase for Dan Campbell's team? Or will Cleveland's defense make it the type of slugfest that comes down to the final minutes? I want to know how confident you are. Drop your predictions, final scores, and X factors in the comments. Do you think Amonrae continues his historic pace? Does Hutchinson add to his sack tally? Or maybe Kirby Joseph grabs that long-awaited interception? Let's hear it. What makes this matchup even more intriguing is how much it says about where the Lions are in their evolution as a franchise. For years, fans have lived through the cycle of hope followed by disappointment, teams that could flash brilliance one week, only to collapse the next. But this team under Dan Campbell doesn't just win, they win in ways that feel sustainable. Against Baltimore, they showed resilience, composure, and a relentless identity. Against Cleveland, the question is whether they can now prove consistency. Can they bring that same fire, that same execution, and impose their will against a defense built to frustrate opponents? Because make no mistake, the Browns' defensive front isn't just talented, it's disruptive in a way that forces opponents to rethink their game plans. Myles Garrett alone commands double teams, and his presence opens lanes for others like Shelby Harris and rookie Mason Graham. Jim Schwartz's philosophy is about creating chaos with only 4 pass rushers, forcing quarterbacks into bad decisions without blitzing. That's where Jared Goff's poise becomes critical. If he gets rattled early, the game could become a grind. But if he stays sharp, hitting quick throws to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and Khalif Raymond, the Lions can keep the chains moving and prevent Garrett from taking over. There's also the wild card of Jameson Williams. We've seen flashes of his speed, but against a team like Cleveland, stretching the field vertically could be the difference. If Ward is limited or sidelined, this is exactly the type of game where Williams' deep threat changes everything, forcing safeties to back off, opening space for Montgomery to punish between the tackles. It's that balance of explosiveness and physicality that makes this Lions offense so dangerous. Defensively, the challenge is less about Cleveland's weapons and more about staying disciplined. Joe Flacco may not be the quarterback he once was, but he's still capable of launching a perfect deep ball